The GeForce 256 1999, the first chip ever called a GPU, and the place where every modern graphics card begins its long story. Back then, your processor did every single job in the computer, and drawing 3D graphics was grinding it to a halt. So NVIDIA hired a second worker, a chip that did graphics and absolutely nothing else. Games instantly ran nearly twice as fast, and the word GPU entered the language. Its whole job: turn 3D shapes into the flat picture on your screen, thousands of times every second. Two jobs on repeat: transform, placing every object, then lighting, shading the world until it looks solid. That single split, graphics on its own chip, is still how every computer on Earth is built today. 2003, the GeForce FX 5800, NVIDIA's proud new flagship, about to become the most famous punchline the graphics world ever produced. Faster chips run hotter, and hot chips need a fan to survive. This one ran so hot, it needed a fan so huge and so loud that people said it sounded like a hairdryer bolted to your PC. And after all that noise, it's still lost. Rival company ATI had a quieter, faster card out months earlier, so NVIDIA paid more, ran louder, and finished second. The deeper lesson here is about timing. In technology, being just 6 months late is a lifetime. Your rival grabs the reviews, the word of mouth, and the momentum, and by the time you finally show up, the race is quietly already over. 2006, and the GeForce 8800 GTX quietly did something huge. It accidentally invented the chip that 20 years later would power the entire AI boom. Older cards had specialists. One part only did lighting, another only did shapes, and if a game needed more of one, the rest sat idle and wasted. So NVIDIA made every core identical, little all-rounders that could do any job. Games ran better, but there was a bonus nobody expected. Cores this flexible could also crunch plain math, which meant scientists could run anything on them, not just graphics. That accident became CUDA, and it is the real reason NVIDIA is now one of the most valuable companies in the world. Follow that thread all the way forward. These flexible cores were brilliant at raw math, which is exactly what training a neural network needs. Those networks grew into modern AI, and today entire buildings of NVIDIA chips quietly serve millions of people every single day. 2010's GTX 480 taught everyone a hard lesson about heat, a card so toasty that gamers nicknamed it after a nuclear meltdown. Here is the rule every chip obeys. The more electricity you pour in for speed, the more heat comes out. Push too far and the chip protects itself by slowing down. Engineers call that throttling, and it means your expensive card quietly gets slower. This one crossed 100 degrees Celsius under load, hot enough that reviewers only half joked about frying an egg on it. NVIDIA did quietly fix it. A revised chip months later ran cooler and faster, but by then the nickname had already stuck for good, proving a brutal little rule of technology. A bad first impression is almost impossible to ever undo. In 2014, the GTX 970 caused a scandal that accidentally taught millions of people what VRAM actually is, because NVIDIA got caught lying about it. A graphics card has its own memory, called VRAM. Think of it as a desk, where the card lays out the textures it needs this instant. A bigger desk means more detail on screen without stuttering. This card was sold with a 4 GB desk, but buyers discovered the last half gig was basically a broken drawer, so slow it was useless, meaning you really only got 3.5. A lawsuit followed, and NVIDIA mailed each owner a $30 check, but the number 3.5 became a meme that never died. The strangest part is that it was still a great card, and in the actual games of the day, that missing sliver of memory barely even mattered. But NVIDIA had damaged the one thing no update can ever patch: the buyer's trust, gone in a single afternoon. 2017 gave us the GTX 1080 Ti, the card enthusiasts still call the greatest ever, and the reason why is a simple idea called value. Value just means power divided by price. This card gave you nearly the fastest thing on the market for a fair price, and then, unlike almost any card since, it stayed strong for years instead of feeling old in months. It launched at $699 and beat a card that cost $1,200, a deal so good NVIDIA arguably never let it happen again. So why did this one age so slowly when others feel old in a year? 3 things lined up at once: plenty of raw power, plenty of memory held in reserve for future games, and an efficient design that stayed cool. So while newer cards stumbled, this one just kept quietly winning for years. 2018's RTX 2080 Ti changed how games handle light. NVIDIA bet everything on a technology it named RTX, and even renamed the whole lineup to sell it. For decades, games faked light with clever tricks and painted on shadows. Ray tracing does the opposite. It actually simulates real light rays bouncing around the room, so reflections and shadows just become correct on their own. Simulating light is brutally slow, so NVIDIA added a second trick, DLSS. The card renders a smaller, cheaper picture, then uses AI to intelligently guess the rest and fill it in. It was gorgeous, but the flagship cost $1,199, and at first, almost nobody was sure the fancy light was worth it. And the skeptics were half right. At launch, it truly was overpriced, and barely a handful of games even supported the fancy new lighting. But every console and card since has copied the exact same idea. So today, ray tracing is simply the standard that new games are built around. 2020's RTX 3080 was the best deal in years, and it became almost impossible to actually buy for reasons that had nothing to do with the card. Remember those flexible cores that do raw math? Cryptocurrency was built on exactly that kind of math, so miners bought graphics cards by the thousand to print digital money, leaving none for gamers. Then scalpers made it worse. Bots bought whatever was left the instant it appeared and resold it at double the price to anyone desperate enough to pay. On paper, it was a $699 card for everyone, but for 2 full years, hardly anyone actually paid that price. When crypto finally crashed, the whole flood reversed. Miners dumped millions of used cards dirt cheap onto the market. It sounded like a bargain, except each one had been run flat out, day and night, for years. So buyers never quite trusted them, no matter how low the price fell. 2022 brought the RTX 4090, a true monster. Jaw-dropping speed, a jaw-dropping price, and a brand new flaw that made some of them literally melt. All a card's electricity arrives through a plastic power plug. This monster needed so much that NVIDIA designed a tiny new connector to carry it, and cramming that much power through something that small left almost no room for error. So if you pushed the plug in even slightly loose, that gap turned into heat. The heat built up, and the plastic could melt right onto a $1,500 card. Melting plug and all, it still sold out instantly, because when you make the only true flagship, people complain and buy it anyway. The fix, in the end, was almost embarrassingly simple. Shove the plug all the way in until it firmly clicks. Do exactly that, and the monster behaves perfectly. A 2 billion transistor marvel, undone by people not pushing hard enough. Which brings us to the RTX 5090 2025, the most powerful gaming card ever built, and the clearest sign yet that it may not really be built for gamers at all. Here is the twist that explains the whole price. The same chips that draw your games are also the best tool on earth for training AI, and companies will pay anything for them. So a gamer now bids against trillion-dollar giants for the exact same silicon. So the flagship opens at nearly $2,000, a number that, a decade ago, would have bought you 3 of the very best cards made. The card that was born to set your games free has quietly become an AI chip that merely tolerates them, and a whole generation of players is being priced out. In 25 years, the graphics card went from running your games to the most fought-over chip on earth, and along the way, it stopped being built for you.